Dragons, it's me, Mrs. McHenrick, back again, and I have a lot of things to throw at you this week in addition to weaving on your own homemade cardboard loom. We're going to start today with a little information about how art is going to work in Q4. As long as we are out of school, we are going to be continuing doing our distance learning, and I want to share with you a new structure that I've created to make it more manageable for you at home and also limit the amount of email blasts that you're getting from me. So rather than posting something every single day, I've combined all of my posts for the week into a choice board. Now you're going to see, if you are a primary school family that also has intermediate school students in it, you're going to get two separate choice boards that are a little bit different from one another. That has to do with being more developmentally appropriate one versus the other for the kids in those separate schools. But also there's a different way that I'm going to be keeping track of how students are participating for each building. In the primary school, try and do one thing a week. Your teacher is going to set for you a schedule where you're going to have art built into your schedule. On that day, you can come to the Art Google Classroom and I'll have the choice board posted. Try and pick one of those activities. There'll be 4 different ones. You'll also still have your Google Meets that I host every week on either Thursday or Friday, which depending on whichever grade level you're in, it's one day or the other. That's a choice. You don't have to come to the Google Meet, but I love to see your beautiful face and talk to you. So I hope you think about coming and joining me. If you are an intermediate school student, you're going to be getting your choice board on Monday mornings. There are 5 choices and I want you to pick one. Now, for either building, there's going to be some friends who might want to do art every single day. You can do all the choices, you could do 3 of the choices, you could do 1 of them. As long as you do 1, that's great, okay? At the intermediate school, after your artwork that you've created or whatever you've done is complete, there's a Google form that's linked in the choice board. You'll click on that Google form and you'll fill out just a short little survey that tells me who you are, what you did, and tells me a little bit about it. I'm going to use all that information to keep track of Q4 class participation in order to make sure that I have information for your Q4 report card grades. There's a lot of info. If you have any questions about any of that, please feel free to email me or get in touch with me on Google Classroom. All right, I am now going to turn the tide over to a quick little shout out to my 4th grade friends, Mrs. Abrett's class, Mrs. Bojarski's class, Mrs. Fennick's class, Mrs. James and Mrs. Kostich's class, as well as Mrs. Dorf's class and Miss Groff's class. I hope you guys are all doing super. I miss you like crazy. I get to see some of your faces on Google Classroom and in our Google Meets, and I just hope that you are all staying safe and healthy at home, and I just love hearing from you. So come on into those Google Meets with me. Come on in. I would love to see you. All right, let's get into our project. For your homemade cardboard loom weaving today, you're going to need a few supplies. You're going to need some tape. I just have frog tape because that's what kind of tape I have at home. You're going to need a piece of cardboard. It doesn't have to be huge. I just cut this off of an Amazon delivery box. You're going to need a pair of scissors, and you're going to need some yarn. It's okay if you only have one color of yarn, but if you have multiple colors, that's great too, just because it will be a little bit less confusing for you. Now, you might be looking at my yarn and going, that's weird, yarn, Mrs. McHenrick, that doesn't look like normal yarn. Well, this is actually yarn that I made out of 2 t-shirts. And I posted this video for you last week on Google Classroom, and it comes from an art teacher. Her YouTube channel name is Art Room Glitter Fairy. And she posted a really cool tutorial on how to cut a t-shirt and create yarn out of it. And I don't actually have any yarn here at home, and I have a ton of yarn at school, but since I know a lot of you might not have yarn at home either. I didn't think it was fair if I had yarn and you don't have yarn. So here we go. We are using t-shirts. If you haven't made yarn and you want to do this project, now is a great time to pause this video and to create some t-shirt yarn. If you are ready to go, here we go. You are going to be creating today you could do a variety of things. You're going to be creating a loom on cardboard, which I'll show you this in a second. When you do that, you can do two things. You can leave your weaving on your loom, or you can take it off. This is the little adorable weaving project that I created, taking it off my loom. So this could be used as, you could use it like a little coaster for your coffee in the morning, or juice or water, whatever you're drinking. And or you can hang it on your wall. It could be a bookmark. You can think of way cooler things than I'm thinking of for this to be. And if you use, depending on the size of cardboard you use, this could be wider, shorter, longer, whatever. All right, or you don't have to take your weaving off of the loom. So here is the same materials, and I just made my loom part of the artwork itself. So I colored on the back, and I used the same technique that I'm going to be showing you for the smaller project to create this. And then this weaving I will not take off of the loom because it's meant to be spaced out like this, and I'll be showing you how to have all your weaving really close together here in the future. Okay, so lots of variations on this one project that you can do, and right now I'm going to get you started showing you how to create a weaving project using a homemade cardboard loom. I hope you have fun. Here we go. Okay, so to start our mini loom, we're going to take our piece of cardboard and our pair of scissors, and we're going to cut slits down the long sides, trying to keep them evenly spaced. They don't have to go too far into the cardboard. Those of you at home who might be doing this with t-shirt yarn like I am, you might want your slits to be a little bit further apart since the t-shirt yarn is thicker. For those of you who are doing this with regular yarn, you can keep your slits a little bit closer together. All right, I'm gonna keep it like that. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Did I count that right? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 slits. Now I'm going to do the same thing on this side of the cardboard, and I'm going to try and have them match up the ones across from them. All right, so I have my two kinds of t-shirt yarn that I created, and I'm going to use for my warp strips. Remember, those are the yarn that we use to actually create the supports for our loom. I'm choosing to use the white. So I'm going to create my warp strips, or I'm sorry, I keep saying strips. I'm going to create the warp for my loom by taking a piece of tape, cut it, and I'm going to tape the end of my t-shirt yarn. I'm actually going to put it through, let's do this side, put it through one of these notches. There we go. Get it down in there nice and tight, and I'm going to tape it onto the back. That's going to help hold that in place. Okay, so now, see how the t-shirt yarn stretches? I'm going to stretch it across my loom, put it into my other notch, flip this over, and now I'm gonna go diagonal across the back of the cardboard to the next notch over on the opposite side. Put it in there. This whole time I'm pulling on the t-shirt yarn to make sure that it's nice and tight. that's going to create a great support for my weaving project. And it's also going to make it so that when I take it off the loom, it's not super floppy. It'll still hold its shape. This one got a little, here we go. See if I can get that in there. Now the t-shirt that I cut up for this white t-shirt yarn is a little bit of a stretchy shirt that I had. So that's part of why this is stretching so much, but I just want to make sure that these are nice and tight. So you can see there is the seam from my shirt, that's okay. All right. And remember, this is the warp of my loom. The yarn that we use to weave into it is called the weft. Now I still have my white on the ball here, so I've just been rolling it right off the ball of yarn. There's one here, and then it's the last one here. And I'm going to take this and I'll cut the end, take that out of the way, and I'll just take a little piece of tape now, and I am going to tape down the end here so that that stays in place. Okay, it's pretty good. All right, that won't stay on forever. Okay, so our warp is completed. Now I'm going to take my other ball of yarn, my other t-shirt yarn that I made, the blue one, and I'm going to weave it into my loom. Now, if you saw the paper weaving video that I did, then you know there's a pattern, over, under, and that you also know that the trickiest part of weaving is that each row has to be opposite each other. Meaning if I started this row going over, under, all the warp, then the row behind it would be the opposite way. I'm using a ball of yarn, so the way that I'm thinking about it is I'm actually going to be going back and forth. If you are using strips of yarn or strips of t-shirt, you're going to do the same thing that we did for the paper weaving, over, under, and then the next row, under, over. Since I'm using a ball of yarn to do this, and I'm actually going to cut some of the yarn off, and I'm going to go back and forth, you'll see how that might be a little bit different since you're going the opposite direction. Okay, I'm going to cut off just a little bit of my blue yarn to get started, just because my ball here is too big to go back and forth through the warp strips. So I've got some blue yarn here. I'm just gonna start on this side. You could also, if you had a needle at home, if you're using smaller yarn, you might put the end of the yarn through the needle, and that could help you go back and forth through the strips. I'm just gonna use my fingers. So I'm going to start here, going over, under, over, under, over, under, over, under, over, under, over. Now, here's an important part. So now I'm gonna pull this yarn all the way through. Got some interesting texture there, and I'm leaving a little tail on the end. The next important thing is now you're gonna use your fingers and you're gonna slide this, your weft yarn, for me the blue yarn, down to the bottom, and it's gonna rest on the bottom of these warp strands. All right, now here's what I was talking about before. You're going to, if you just look, you have to watch and make sure that you're going the right way. But this blue yarn, the last warp strip here, it is over that warp strip. That means that this yarn needs to start by going under. So we just have to check ourselves and make sure that we are looking at the row below. Look at the row below, and that's how you're gonna know. Oh man, I'm like a musician right now. Look at the row below, and that's how you'll know to check if you're weaving the correct way. And I pulled it through. Now, see how it's still a little curvy here? If I pull too hard, look at what happens to my warp. See how it starts to come in on the side? I don't want that. So I'm going to undo that a little bit, and I'm just gonna make sure that my blue yarn here is touching that white warp strip, but it's not hugging it in too close. If it hugs it in too close, it's going to make my weaving all come in the middle, and I don't want it. I want to have kind of straight sides. All right, and then I'm just gonna put that down like that. And I'm gonna keep weaving here, and then I'll show you a couple more things before we finish up. So I'm almost done with my weaving, but if you notice, I still have room on the top to weave, and I don't have enough yarn left. So let me show you what you'll do. I cut another piece of my t-shirt yarn that I'm going to use to weave in 1 or maybe 2 rows. All you have to do is go from where you left off. This last piece right here went under the warp, so I'm going to bring this one over. And I'm going to do what I did in the very beginning, which is I'm going to just leave a little tail off at the end. As you get closer to the top here, it gets a little bit trickier. Your warp strips get a little bit tighter because they've got all sorts of exciting things going on down below. All right, so now I'm gonna just pull that through. There, now I feel like I'm pretty much done here. Okay, and I guess we could go back one more time. Make sure you could still see. It's just gonna be a little tight up here. So this is really great fine motor skill building, which means that the muscles in your hands that are responsible for some of the more detailed tasks like drawing, handwriting, doing very intricate, small, detailed work, those are going to get stronger doing stuff like this, which means that the more that your fine motor muscles get worked, the better your things like handwriting and drawing are going to be. All right, so I have finished weaving, and now it's time to complete our little weaving project here. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to be taking these end strips. You might have strips on this side too, I just didn't end up with yarn over there. And I'm going to actually weave them up into the sides. So I have this extra piece here. I'm going to I'm gonna take that and I'm just gonna tuck it up under all of these end pieces. There we go. This is just helping to finish it so that I don't have stuff sort of hanging off the sides. And I'm gonna do the same thing with these ones. All right, so now I've got all of that tucked in, and I'm just going to do the final step, which is going to be to take my weaving off of my loom. How do we do that? Back here, where we started, here's the back of my loom. I'm gonna take my scissors, and I'm actually going to cut a straight line up through these warp yarn. Now remember before when we stretched those real tight, we want to be careful that these don't go flinging around and then zip into our weaving, because we're gonna have it'll all get unraveled and we're gonna have a hard time getting it undone. So that's why tucking it into your loom like this is a good idea. So now I'm just going to take off the tape here, and I'm going to take pieces next to each other, and I'm going to just take them off, and then tie them together in a knot. Now, you do not have to take your weaving off your loom. You can keep it on, especially since this loom is made of cardboard. Some looms are made of wood or other things, and they're not meant to be part of the art. The weaving is meant to be taken off the loom. This weaving, since it's made out of cardboard and you can continue to make cardboard looms as long as you have cardboard, it's fine if it stays on. That's okay. All right, I'm gonna finish up the rest of these and then I'll show you just something real quick. So I've completed taking my weaving off of my mini loom, and I do want to say one thing. So when I originally cut this, apparently I cut an odd number of slots. So you are going to want to make sure you cut an even number of slots, because what I actually had to do was I would tie them in pairs, and I got to the end and there was one that didn't have a buddy, so I had to tie it to the next door neighbors that were already tied together. So that I have some bigger knots on the end, and that's okay. But this is just a small weaving. If you used a larger piece of cardboard, it would be wider. But it's kind of fun. It's a cute little guy. You could use it for a bookmark. You could use it as a coaster even, or just hang it on your wall. It's cute. I did want to show you, not all weaving has to come off the loom. This is something that I just created using the same exact techniques that we just talked about with the mini loom. Same cardboard from the same box. I just decorated the cardboard with marker. You could use crayons, colored pencils, oil pastels, whatever you have at home. And instead of having all the weaving being super tight together and using my fingers to smush it down, I kind of spaced it out a little bit. I was going for like an ocean wavy theme idea. So just wanted to show you how the loom can also be a part of the artwork. It doesn't have to be just a tool that's used to create art. It can be art itself. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this project, and either fill out your Google form if you're intermediate school, or send me some photos so I can see what you create. Have a great day. Bye-bye.